Have you ever wondered what the official rulebook for a balance sheet actually says? I mean, not just a summary, but going straight to the source. Well, today that's exactly what we're going to do. We are deconstructing this fundamental financial statement piece by piece according to the official standards. Let's see what the rules really have to say. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the balance sheet as a financial snapshot. Then, we're going to get into the weeds on current assets and liabilities. After that, we'll tackle a pretty tricky rule called offsetting. And finally, we'll pull it all together to see the big picture.
All right, first up, let's frame what the balance sheet really is. The best way to think about it, it's basically a company's financial selfie.
This is the one fundamental question the balance sheet is designed to answer. It's not about performance over a quarter or a year. It's all about a company's financial health at a single, specific moment in time.
And you know, the official rulebook gives it another name that I think is actually way more descriptive. The Statement of Financial Position. And that name gets right to the point. It isn't about profit or loss over time. It's a direct presentation of what a company owns, that's its assets, and what it owes, its liabilities, at one precise moment. It's a snapshot, totally frozen in time.
So how does this snapshot actually work? Well, it all starts with what a company owns. We're talking about the resources it has on hand right now to run its day-to-day operations.
The key thing here is how quickly a company can use something. A current asset is anything the company reasonably expects to turn into cash, sell, or just use up within its normal business rhythm. But of course, that begs the question, what exactly is a normal rhythm? Or, as the rules call it, an operating cycle.
Now, you might think short-term just always means 12 months, but the rules are actually a lot smarter than that. They define it by the operating cycle, the time it takes to go from raw materials to cash in hand. For, say, a software company, that's going to be pretty fast. But what about industries like tobacco, where products need to age, or lumber, where things have to grow? Their cycle can be way longer than a year, and the rules are flexible enough to account for that.
So what does this actually look like on paper? Well, the most common examples are the usual suspects. The cash a company has in the bank, the product sitting in its warehouse, the money that customers still owe them. It also includes stuff you've paid for in advance, like next month's rent or a new insurance policy.
Okay, but here's where a really crucial distinction comes in. It's not just about what an asset is. It's about what it's for. Cash that you can use for payroll today, that's a current asset. But what if that same cash is legally restricted, like it's set aside to buy a new building 3 years from now? Well, then it's not a current asset, simply because it's not available for today's operations.
All right, now for the other side of the coin. If current assets are what you have to work with, current liabilities are all the bills you've got to pay, and pay soon.
And the logic here, it lines up perfectly with what we just talked about. A current liability is basically any debt that you expect to settle using your current assets. It really is just the other side of that short-term coin.
The examples here are pretty intuitive, right? It's the money you owe your suppliers, the wages you owe your employees, and of course, the taxes you have to pay. It also covers money you've already received for a service you haven't delivered yet, like a customer deposit. And this is a big one. It includes the piece of a long-term loan that's due within this next year.
Now, when you put these two things together, current assets and current liabilities, you get to the absolute heart of a company's short-term stability. The rulebook itself describes this relationship as a margin or buffer.
And that buffer has a name: working capital. This number tells you exactly how much liquid capital a company has to, well, work with after it covers all of its immediate bills. It's a really vital sign of financial health.
And it all boils down to the super simple formula. A positive number here means the company has a solid safety cushion. It can cover its short-term bills and still have money to fund its operations without breaking a sweat.
Okay, this next part gets a little more technical, but it answers a really common question. Let's say you owe a company money, but they also happen to owe you money. Can you just show the net difference on your balance sheet?
The rulebook starts with a very clear, very hard no. Generally speaking, offsetting is improper. You have to show the full picture. However, there is one major exception to this rule, and that's when a legal right of set-off exists.
So that, of course, leads to the obvious question, what in the world qualifies as a right of set-off?
A right of set-off is not just some casual agreement like, hey, we'll just call it even. Nope. It is a binding legal right. It gives a debtor the actual power to apply money another party owes them directly against their own debt. And claiming this right is not easy. You have to meet all 4 of these conditions. The debts have to be mutual, you need the legal right,
and the actual intent to do it. And it has to be legally enforceable, even if someone goes bankrupt. The bar is set this high for a really good reason. It stops companies from hiding the true scale of their financial relationships. It is all about transparency.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've gone through some very specific rules and principles here. But why? Why do we even have such a detailed rulebook for this stuff in the first place?
Well, the reason is actually pretty simple. It's all about trust. When every single company classifies its assets and liabilities in the exact same way, it means investors, lenders, and even managers can make fair apples-to-apples comparisons. It creates a level playing field for understanding a company's real financial health.
So let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. A properly classified balance sheet tells you all about a company's short-term health. It cleanly separates what you'll use soon from what you have to pay soon. That difference is your working capital, your operational safety cushion. And just remember, offsetting is the very rare exception, not the rule, all in the name of transparency.
And that leaves us with one final thought. Now that you're armed with the official rules, you can look past the surface of these documents. So the next time you see a balance sheet, ask yourself, what's the real story behind these numbers? What is it actually telling you about that company's?
If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Your support helps us bring more valuable content to you. Don't forget to subscribe for the latest insights and research from GPS Research Publishers, Inc. Join our community and stay informed.